Number 10. YARA FLOR. YARA FLOR is destined to become the new Wonder Woman. At least that is what Future State would have us believe. For now though, in the Prime Earth continuity, she is just coming into her own and being introduced to us as a hero, figuring out as well what that means for her as our Wonder Girl. YARA herself, like Wonder Woman before her, is also a demigod. In Future State we learned that while her mother was a mortal woman, her father was a Brazilian river god. YARA is an Amazonian in two ways, being from the Amazon and also being an Amazon of the Amazons. She is not from Themyscira like Diana, but instead from the Amazonian rainforest. We've seen the potential of YARA via her appearance in Future State, but currently she is not at her full power levels just yet, as she doesn't have the same amount of experience as her future self. Like Diana, she is also a skilled combatant and has enhanced strength and speed due to her heritage. Number 9. Beta Ray Bill. Beta Ray Bill isn't someone you'd initially think of when you think of Immortal, but he is down with the Immortals of Asgard, and so I think we can include him too. Also add in the fact that he is a cyborg, and you have a Beta Ray Bill that just won't quit, in most cases at least. In his Thor form, Beta Ray Bill becomes one of the toughest heroes around, not only known for his strength but also his durability. He is immune to disease and sickness and becomes pretty much immortal in that form. Being at the level of strength and capability when it comes to his power levels also makes him one of the most powerful heroes in the Marvel Universe, even though he might not be the one that you think of first. Still, I'm really happy I put Beta Ray Bill on this list because I feel like we never talk about him enough. Poor Bill. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list, I have a lot more immortal, powerful heroes that I want to tell you about. So be sure to let us know you are loving it by giving this video a thumbs up. And shout out in the comments, be like part 2, part 2. Maybe we'll do a part 2. Number 8. Orion. Orion is one of the new gods and also the son of Darkseid, but just because his dad is one of the greatest villains of all time when it comes to the DC universe doesn't mean that he can't be a hero, which is ultimately what Orion is, preferring to fight on the side of good. Although this doesn't mean that he never has conflicts with other superheroes in the DC universe, because that does happen from time to time, with Orion arguing that his approach to heroism in certain cases is superior. Orion is an amazingly skilled fighter and leader who is known for his super strength, durability, and stamina. He also is immortal like his father, and because Darkseid has also been established as a constant in the DC universe, therefore invulnerable from ever being permanently defeated, we can discern that Orion likely has a similar thing going on, being descended from Darkseid as he is. Number 7. Icarus. I would be remiss if I didn't at least mention one Eternal on this list. Eternals are known for their immortality. I mean, it's kinda in the name. Eternal. We call them eternal because they are. They have lived on Earth for 1 million years at this point or more, Icarus included. They are beings who were created by the Celestials, but whose purpose remained a great mystery in the comics for a long time. Initially though, it seemed that the Celestials had created them to kind of be Earth's heroes, but also because they kind of enjoyed messing with species on other worlds, which was exactly what they were doing with humanity when they created both the Eternals and their initial sworn enemies, the Deviants. Icarus, like himself, is often thought of as being the Superman equivalent of the group. Icarus is well known for his durability, strength, flight, and energy manipulation and energy beams, including heat vision as a form of. Icarus is strong enough to take on Thanos one-on-one and also possesses the ability to heal himself. Like other Eternals, he also has the capability to teleport, though he actually prefers not to do that, and he possesses low-level psionic abilities that allow him to communicate telepathically, as well as more advanced telekinetic abilities. Number 6. Supergirl. Like her cousin Kal-El, Supergirl is often perceived as being basically immortal. In Future State, we saw an alternate future where Kara left Earth and lived well into the future. At the end of her Future State limited series, Kara Zor-El Superwoman, Supergirl did inevitably die, but we don't really know what from. It could have eventually been that she succumbed to old age after living well into the future and beyond, or it could be that she died protecting the Eternal Garden and community there that she created and had fostered. I would err on the side of the latter just because of how immortal Kara already seemed in that series. And that's not the only alternate reality where we've seen Kryptonians living well into the future, virtually untouched by age. There have been countless other realities, including that of DC 1 million, where we've seen heroes like Superman live well beyond normal years, becoming basically a sun-powered god. So if this is true for Clark based on his physiology, it must also be a possibility for Kara as well. Number 5. Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman is still a woman that can be killed, but she has also been known as a demigod in the comics before, with one origin for her making her the daughter of Hippolyta, the Queen of Amazons, and Zeus, a god of Olympus. Really, the god of Olympus. More recently, during the events of Dark Knight's death metal, Diana was also raised up to become an omnipotent god amidst the stars, transcended into an otherworldly being and leaving our earthly plane behind, at least for a while. Diana would get a glimpse into a potential future, giving us the future state line, world, and event. Wonder Woman is known for being one of the fiercest and strongest fighters amongst the Amazons and in the world of DC besides. Number 4. Cersei. Probably one of the most powerful Eternals around, and definitely one of the few with the greatest staying power in the comics, is Cersei. So she's not only immortal as an Eternal, but also immortal in terms of her appearance in the comics. Cersei is introduced to us as one of the members of the Eternals who most loves humanity in the MCU film Eternals, and the same can be said for her in the comics. There she is also known as one of the most sociable Eternals, who also appreciates a really good party. In fact, when she was tricked into believing she was human, this was kinda what her whole world centered around. She became like all about parties. When it comes to her power levels, Cersei is often seen as specializing in the power of transmutation. In the comics, this has never been restricted to non-organic matter either, and also gives Cersei the power to heal. As an Eternal, she not only possesses this power, but also has complete control over every molecule of her being, making her quite durable and quite hard to kill. Even when Eternals are killed as well, they are resurrected, meaning they can never really die. Not only that, but Cersei can fly, teleport, and has super strength, and is telepathic and telekinetic. She's really got a lot of powers. Like most Eternals. That is something that I feel like we didn't really see in the movie, but in the comics, they're all pretty OP. Number 3. Hulk. Hulk is definitely one of the most powerful heroes around in Marvel Comics. Often he is well known for his massive amount of strength and ability to smash or destroy just about anything he sets his mind to wrecking. Lately, however, we saw a deep dive into the character of the Hulk and Bruce Banner, who are also often described as being two separate beings kind of sharing one existence. In Immortal Hulk, we also learn not only that Hulk is extremely complex, but also that he's, well, you may have guessed it, immortal. Granted, this very revelation was something pulled from his original origin, where it was initially explained that at night the Hulk would basically take over, and because of this, whenever night fell, if Bruce Banner had been killed, then Hulk would be resurrected, bringing Bruce back with him. If you are a Hulk fan and you haven't yet read Immortal Hulk, by the way, it's definitely a must read, so go do that. And you'll see what I'm talking about with all this immortal stuff, if you didn't already know, because I feel like, you know, if you've been a Hulk fan for a long time, then you probably were like, I mean, it makes sense. Number 2. Jean Grey. Jean has died a lot, and I mean a lot, and yet she always comes back. If that isn't immortality, I do not know what is. Even when she has been dead for years, she still returns. A big part of what makes her so indestructible is how much the Phoenix Force loves her and often sees her as its preferred host. I guess except for the whole Phoenix tournament thing, that really threw my whole understanding of the Jean-Phoenix connection for a loop. As a superhero, Jean is one of the most powerful around, but often chooses to show restraint when it comes to her abilities unless she is really needed to set things right. She's just kinda too OP as well. She is an Omega level telepath and an extremely powerful telekinetic. Number 1. Superman. One of the most immortal of the immortals out there, and one of the most powerful, is Superman, who has been established as immortal as long as he's under a yellow sun. Granted, his immortality is a little bit conditional, but when it comes to being a powerhouse, Superman is undisputedly one of the best and most established in comics today. I mean, they kinda had to nail down his powers and give him weaknesses to make his struggles more grounded. That's how unstoppable he initially was, back when his superpowers were basically whatever he needed them to be in order to save the day and solve problems. Superman has also died before, but has pretty much always come back, and following the death of Superman, we also learned that due to Kryptonian technology, even this publicized and sensationalized death would most definitely not be a permanent thing. A very powerful factor that Superman also possesses when it comes to his immortality is how popular he is, evidently. So it'd be really hard to kill Superman because we'd all be like, no! No one would accept it. We'd all be like, just tearing our hair out and beating our chest, would be like, unacceptable.
Kicking off the list at number 10, Superwoman. For this week, we'll be taking a look at Kristen Wells' Superwoman. She first appeared in DC Comics Presents Annual number 2. Now, she's from the 29th century. Kristen was a history student who traveled back in time to discover the origins of Miracle Monday, a universal holiday. She was quite committed to the craft, and it didn't take long for her to become Professor Wells. Her next field trip was a little more intense. Now she traveled to the 20th century to discover the secret identity of Superwoman, only to find out it was her the whole time. See, this Superwoman version of her took future tech, traveled back in time, and then saved the day alongside Superman at some point. Then she helped them take down King Cosmos. It was a pretty big deal. And then Wells traveled back to the future to tell the people the secret identity. It's kind of confusing in the brain. And they're all pretty shocked, but they're thrilled nonetheless. They gather and they celebrate Kristen's accomplishments that technically haven't happened yet in their timeline. What an odd party. Hey Kristen, great job. She's like, thanks, it was hard. Number 9, Rip Hunter. Making his first appearance in Booster Gold issue 13, Hunter is a guardian of the time stream and leader of the Time Masters. Not bad on the resume. Rightfully so. I mean, right from the start, this guy was preparing for enemies a time traveler would face. He was worried somebody would go back in time and prevent him from being born, so he got ahead of the game, or behind it rather, and then he hid the details of his birth from the public. I have to include Rip Hunter because we mentioned Booster Gold in our last futuristic hero list. Rip Hunter is the son of Booster Gold, but not even Booster knows that, so no one tell him, no one text him. Hunter has seen many days being a time traveler, of course. He was one that witnessed the birth of the new multiverse, and he played a major role in the defeat of Mr. Mind. He of course is a genius when it comes to temporal machines, but when you have literally all that time on your hands, you have time to kill and therefore time to train. Rip Hunter killed time by studying martial arts from BC to the end of time. So you don't want to mess with him in any timeline or else you'll get choked out in some era's version of Taekwondo, you know? Guys, before we continue on with this list, you know the drills, nerds. If you want to go ahead and give that video a thumbs up, it really helps us out here a bit. You're the best, thank you so much. Let's get right back to this list. You know, quick little intermission. Number 8, Adam Strange. Adam Strange was once a normal dude. He was an archaeologist working in South America when all of a sudden he was transported to the planet of Ron. The Zeta Beam signed him out of work early that day. You always want it to happen. You're like, come on Zeta Beam, I'm tired. The leader of Ron, Sardath, teleported Adam there, and then Strange didn't waste any time. He got a flight pack, he got a ray gun, the whole Mandalorian package. He was on board. The Radians and him got along famously. It was pretty good so far. He even charmed Sardath's daughter over there, and they eventually fell in love. Now the beam effect wore off, so he did eventually return to Earth, but after predicting where the next Zeta Beam would hit, Adam scheduled those trips, those archaeological trips, around that location. He needed to marry Alana, so he has to check in with the fam. I get it. Now it turns out this beam wasn't too leisurely, it had purpose. Radians were becoming more and more sterile, so this beam was actually searching for a suitable mate on all these planets. So Adam met the Justice League after assisting in a battle with Kanjiro, but when he was offered membership, he declined it, because he was too committed with the Radians. The jetpack and the ray gun, I mean, he's obviously busy, he's shooting things flying around, he's got his hands full, literally. Number 7, KALEB. KALEB of Hedros made his first appearance in Superman the Man of Steel Annual, issue 5. He's from the Legends of the Dead Earth crossover, when Lex Luthor XL activated Krypton Protocol. Now at this point, Lex was the leader of the Galactic Empire, some Star Wars level villain stuff here. His goal was to destroy every planet that met the specifications for a Superman to be born. So basically, if a planet showed potential, if it had a yellow star, his solution was just to Dr. Evil laser beam the planet into extinction, and then nothing will happen. Not a bad plan. I mean, it's kind of brutal, but I guess it would work. So his target was this planet, Hedros. Now thankfully brave rebels also exist in this universe, so they snuck onto the planet and saved the last remaining inhabitant, KALEB. So once he got off this doomed planet, as Lex predicted, he became the Man of Steel. Number 6, Wave Rider. Matthew Ryder made his first appearance in Armageddon 2001. He's a time traveler who comes from a dark future. I love old comics when they talk about the future because the year that Matthew came from is only 9 years away from today. Yeah, he's from the year 2030. Will there be flying cars, hoverboards, Avatar 2? Nope, it's actually going to be ruled by Monarch. Spoiler alert, it's pretty bad. At this point in time, he's wiped out most of Earth's heroes. It's not looking too helpful, so Matthew was rescued during this madness by a hero named Bennett Dilly. Matthew volunteered himself to travel back in time and hopes to figure out what turned Monarch evil. Now the past year's subjects never made it, but Matt Rayner did. Thank God. Now, not only that, when he entered the time stream, he was transformed into Wave Rider. So now he's able to surf through time whenever he feels like it. The classic go back in time but get powers during the commute. Awesome, we love it. He's also the king of spoilers, because his new powers allow him now to see into somebody's probable future by merging with them. Imagine bumping into this guy and you're like, oh, sorry. He's like, hey, no worries, good luck on your pilot test. They're like, what? He eventually joined the Linear Men and helped Superman quite a bit when Doomsday returned the first time. He offered details on Doomsday's origin, and he took Doomsday to the end of time, which sounds permanent, but Brainiac was still able to revive Doomsday. But we love the effort. Wave Rider is great, ladies and gentlemen, just don't binge watch any shows with him. He'll spoil the last season before it's even filmed. Number 5, Bart Allen. Making his first full appearance in The Flash Volume 2, Issue 92, Bart Allen was the grandson of Barry Allen, and his father was Don Allen, and his mother was Melanie Thawne, descendant of Flash villains Cobalt Blue and Professor Zoom. Now Bart was of course born with his grandfather's gift of, traveling at light speed, but he also aged at hyperspeed too, which is concerning. When he was only 2 years old, his body was already at age 12. President Thawne had the Dominators abduct Bart so they could do experiments and all that evil stuff, but they ended up creating a clone of Bart called Inertia. Now Bart was of course going to die earlier than most people because of his aging problem, so Iris West took him to the 20th century to the third Flash, Wally West, so he could teach Bart how to control his speed and, not perish and still stay alive. Bart came back later as Impulse and was one of the founding members of Young Justice. Number 4, CALCULHA. Also known as the Ancient One, CALCULHA was originally around in comics for a year, starting with Warlord issue 5. CALCULHA was the Atlantean god of light and was considered one of the most powerful mages in ancient Atlantis history. Being a follower of the Lords of Order and being born before creation itself, CALCULHA and Dark Magistra had some powerful offspring, Orion and Garn Danuth. Now Orion was a demigod and Garn Danuth grew up to become an agent of Order. All this power running through the family tree, but where did it come from? CALCULHA came from Darkworld. He was a protector of the creator of said realm. Kind of a big deal. Now it didn't take long for him to become a sorcerer king, and then he liberated Atlantis, and before you know it, him and his wife Magistra and 10 other mages created the Zodiac crystals, which are basically these statues that were patterned after all the Zodiac signs. So if you're into crystals, there you go. This cult couple didn't last too long because Magistra unfortunately joined the dark side. CALCULHA stayed pure. He declared himself to pure white magic. Perhaps the best part of this guy is his ability to see the past, present, and future. DC Comics Presents issue 75 is a trip. A lot of time travel goodness in those old pages. You gotta go check it out. Number 3, John Fox. Making his first appearance in Flash Special Issue 1, John Fox resided comfortably in the year 2645. He was a historian for the National Academy of Science in Central City, and his life changed when the radioactive villain Manfred Moda showed up. He was causing destruction, the world was in chaos because of this guy, so the Academy decided, you know what, let's just send John back in time because we're in the future and we can do that. Hey, what's up? And then John can grab a Flash or two, come back, and then all of them can help us take down Moda. Now the plan of course didn't work because it's easier said than done. He couldn't get any Flashes to come back to the future with him, but during this cosmic commute, John himself got super speed, which is almost a better alternative if you ask me. He quickly suited up and took down Moda himself, quite impressive. This sounds like a dream scenario, but John lost his job when speed robots came into the picture. Damn robots taking our jobs, even in 2645. This is relentless. Number 2, Batman. On our last list of futuristic heroes, we mentioned Thomas Wayne, the Batman of the Flashpoint universe, who is a little dark to say the least. So for this list, we had to mention the time that Batman was sent back in time through Darkseid's Omega Beams. It's super fun and also really stressful. This happens during the 6-parter written by Grant Morrison, Final Crisis. Now it appears Bruce is dead during the story, but later on it's revealed in Return of Bruce Wayne that he just took a trip through time. He was sent back to multiple eras. I'm talking the dawn of history. Caveman Bruce Wayne, and then he jumps further in time and there's witches running around. It's really fun to see Bruce use his intellect to get out of these specific eras. That's the whole fun of it. Also, if you've ever wanted to see Batman as the historical pirate Blackbeard, well, now's your chance. Go check it out. And finally, number 1, Green Lantern. Green Lantern power rings are quite impressive. It can be used as a universal translator, it allows its user to communicate telepathically, and in Superman Man of Tomorrow issue 13, Superman goes nuts, so Kyle Rayner created kryptonite with the ring. It's pretty impressive, but you also may forget that the ring allows for one to time travel. Hal Jordan traveled to the 70th century once. He was brought into the far future to take down an evil government, but in doing so, the ring required enormous amounts of will and energy. So in turn, he ended up losing his memories and started going by the alias Paul Manning. So there was a point where Green Lantern was a superhero in 2 timelines, and that's why he's number 1.
Number 10, Batman. Ooh, one of my favorite heroes out there, especially right now. Despite Batman claiming to always be so in control, even he has his limits. We've seen countless realities and Elseworlds where Batman completely loses control and even becomes some of the most powerful and unstoppable villains we've ever seen in DC's history. And we got a lot of unstoppable villains. But when it comes to Batman, one of the biggest villains I can think of for him is Batman Who Laughs. Batman is a villain who loves to prepare for any potential crisis, but often it is this obsession that ends up being his downfall. And even in the main continuity, there are a few times that Bruce has teetered near the edge of losing it. Also in the Batman Telltale game, granted at least that loss of control, well, it wasn't really his fault. Number 9. Cersei. Cersei is a member of the Eternals, who admittedly have all flown off the handle before at some point. But in Cersei's case, this has happened more than once. Cersei at one point suffered from an eternal illness known as Mad Worry. Mad Worry? Mad Worry? That sounds weird, but I'm just gonna assume I'm saying it right. Which appeared to make her more aggressive, even pushing her to at times kill her opponents. Her change in demeanor was also denoted in the comics via a change in costume. I love a good costume change, with her wearing a bright red number in place of her more common green superhero attire. I mean, I feel like red or green, either way you do it, I love both those colors personally. In order to help cure Cersei, who refused to acknowledge her illness and initially resisted the help of her friends, they decided to place her in Gonjosin with the Black Knight, forging a soul bond between the two, which would go on to basically cause a series of other awkward problems, as Black Knight and Crystal were more in love at the time than Black Knight and Cersei. And later on, there would end up being an alternate version of Dane Whitman, aka Black Knight, hell-bent on killing every version of Cersei across the multiverse. But hey, that's a story for another time. And all you nerds out there, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more lists like it, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. The Flash. In the comics, Barry has lost it a few times, usually as a result of Eobard Thawne, Professor Zoom manipulating him. One of the earliest examples of this in Barry's history was when Thawne attempted to do harm to Barry's fiancée on the day of their wedding. This also happened after Thawne had already killed Iris West, who is Barry's one true love. Fearing for his fiancée Fiona's life and not willing to lose another romantic partner again, can't blame him, after what happened to Iris, Barry shouted, "Not again!" and snapped Thawne's neck. As a result of this excessive use of force, Barry actually ended up losing his fiancée Fiona anyways and was put on trial. It all worked out in the end though, as he managed to escape to the future where Iris was waiting for him. And I know what you're thinking. Wait a minute, I thought you said Iris was dead, so how could she be alive in the future? Well, this is the Flash, so time travel and such, and I don't know, maybe clones, it is comics. Look, it doesn't matter anyways because this happy ending also was interrupted shortly thereafter by Crisis. All of our happy endings got interrupted by Crisis. Woo! Number 7. Storm. Now granted, this one wasn't really Storm's fault, or her intention, but was more something that happened as a result of people preying on Storm's intense claustrophobia, or at least her past claustrophobia, as I think Storm actually managed to move past those fears in recent years, and she no longer really is affected by them in the same way. However, at that time, Storm was severely claustrophobic, so when she ended up being encased in a sort of skin-tight chrome casing, she lost it. I mean, I would lose it too if someone put me in a chrome casing. Doesn't sound very comfortable. Storm appeared to threaten the world over with a massive storm while under duress. The X-Men managed to eventually get through to her and calm her down, which was fortunate as her power levels at the time were compared to the Phoenix. That's how scary Storm losing it can be. That's how scary Storm can be in general. Not a hero you want to push past the brink or, you know, piss off. Just respect Storm. I think that's fair. I think we can all respect Storm, yeah? Number 6. The Flash. Again, but the other Flash. You know what I mean. Wally West is known for being one of the most powerful heroes out there as the Flash. Honestly, I have always felt that super speed is right up there with one of the best power sets. I would agree with Amanda on that. He's also known for being one of the best heroes out there when it comes to his capacity for goodness. All around, Wally is just a lovable dude, but that doesn't mean that he is immune to the pressures sometimes inflicted upon our favorite heroes. Wally himself experienced a loss loss of control over his speed powers and his emotions during his time at Sanctuary. Basically a safe haven for heroes to go and talk about their feelings. Basically allowing them to do therapy in a safe environment. But it wasn't really open to villains, unfortunately. I thought it was pretty unfortunate anyways. I feel like I should be included, you know, I'm moving towards being a hero, right? Wally's paranoia, mainly caused by the reset of the New 52 continuity as he remembered the previous one, New Earth, resulted in him rifling through the files at the Sanctuary. Now this overloaded his mind with intense emotions and basically resulted in him losing control, killing tons of heroes who were present at the time accidentally. Wally attempted to make things right while initially hiding what he'd done, making Booster Gold and myself, Harley Quinn, seem like the likely suspects. But it wasn't us, we didn't do it. But eventually, Wally would also come clean. And this also all went down in Heroes in Crisis. So many crises. We really love our crises over at DC, don't we? Number 5. Scarlet Witch. Poor Wanda. Like many heroes on our list here, her loss of control wasn't really all her fault. Wanda for years had issues with feeling unworthy of love, leaving her feeling undervalued and resulting in her constantly ending up in questionable romances and doing her best to please everyone around her. So when her so-called friends lashed out when Wanda created her and Vision's children, kinda warping reality to have and keep them, it pushed her past her breaking point. When Wanda had discovered that her children were taken from her, she became unstable and eventually she kinda snapped, resulting in the events of House of M. And even there, once again, she was trying to not just give herself a perfect world, but also give all of her friends, family, and her colleagues theirs too. And even then, it still wasn't enough. Now look, I'm not saying that she was completely justified in her actions, just that it's understandable that all this unresolved trauma resulted in M-Day when you consider how powerful the Scarlet Witch is. Unresolved trauma is a huge problem, especially in comic books. If you have some unresolved trauma, it's definitely gonna mess you up. Number 4. Sentry. Sentry is a hero who is known for being one of the most powerful and yet one of the most unstable around. He basically was losing it from pretty much day one. While Robert Reynolds invented a story where he was a voluntary test subject who was chosen to receive the Golden Sentry Serum, in reality he was a drug addict looking for a fix who stumbled upon it while breaking into a lab one night. At this point he was already struggling mentally, and so when he became the Sentry, he also became the Void, with his heroic persona also suffering from his dissociative identity disorder. It was also implied that Mastermind made this worse or potentially unleashed this whole thing, but the reality is Robert Reynolds had struggled since the beginning, so it's more likely that Mastermind simply made things just even worse when it came to Bob's dissociative identity disorder, his DID. While the Sentry is supposed to be one of the greatest and most powerful heroes ever in Marvel Comics, the Void is supposed to be just the opposite, one of the worst and most deadly villains to have ever existed. Number 3. Superman. In Injustice, Superman completely snapped when he was faced with the fact that he'd killed Lois Lane and their unborn child together. Now this was not his fault, mind you, as he was being manipulated into thinking that Lois was Doomsday, so he lost it. He killed Joker and decided that the world needed a more severe kind of justice. A justice that would not allow any crime to continue, even if it meant taking control of the entire world in order to do so. Which was pretty much what Supes did, along with his own loyal version of the Justice League, of course. This did create a big split amongst those heroes, as some felt Superman was in the right, while others thought taking people's freedoms away, no matter the reason, was never really worth it. And I kinda gotta agree with those other heroes. Number 2. Raven. I mean, Raven has to work constantly to keep herself from losing control of her powers and herself. Raven's emotions can cause her to completely lose control and turn to the dark side, both when it comes to her powers and her own inner self. One of my favorite points to come back to for levels of evilness and losing it for Raven is the Nightwing and Starfire New Titans wedding issue, issue number 100, for those interested in checking that out. Not only does evil Raven crash Dick and Corey's wedding and threaten Starfire, which is already a lot, I gotta admit, but she also sets up just how awful this is going to go right from the start when she arrives and immediately incinerates the priest. Yikes. Talk about an entrance. It's actually impressive to me that after the number of times Raven has turned super duper evil, she still manages to return to the side of heroism time and time again, and find a level of forgiveness from her peers. I mean, I feel like I've done a lot of bad stuff, but I don't know if I have anything on Raven. I know it's not really her fault most times, but she's done a lot of really bad things. Number 1. Phoenix. Jean Grey has lost control on a few occasions, but one of the most memorable is likely when she went from Phoenix to Dark Phoenix. Now, of course, in retrospect, this wasn't really Jean, but more an imprint and kind of adopted version of her used by the Phoenix Force. But still, it was made from Jean and likely represents what Jean would have done in that same position. So we can still kinda call it Jean. Comics are confusing. Phoenix ended up losing herself to the Darkseid after her interaction with the Hellfire Club. Interactions there caused Phoenix to snap, breaking through any mental barriers that were still holding on in her brain and causing her to give into her dark side as the power overwhelmed her. One of the first actions was to make Mastermind lose his own mind when she allowed him to see just how much power she was dealing with on a psionic level, giving him a little taste of what she experienced and the information that she had instant access to, which overwhelmed him, rendering him catatonic. From there, it only got a lot more crazy, and it would end up with Dark Phoenix destroying a star and the surrounding planets, one of which was inhabited by, well, millions of people.